Well, and speaking of, the Hollywood machine that is this kind of, that is a real rape culture. That's where the
Yeah,
real rape
yeah. It's
culture
funny
is
because
in
they're saying like,
Hollywood.
"Oh, America's a rape culture." It's like, no, just Hollywood.
But the fact that and it's starting to come out more with how a lot of these big Hollywood stars, they create these jokes where it's like kind of, joking about pedophilia and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously this is what got James Gunn
Right.
in
The
trouble.
recent, yeah, and it's funny because certain things happened this past week. Just to go back, with the Roseanne thing and how she got fired for her tweets, which what happened on her own time, and she apologized for, but yet still was fired. And James Gunn was one of those guys who was like kind of like reveling in it and gloating about the fact that Roseanne got fired for um, what is it? Abhorrent. I think to quote him, he said abhorrent comments.
Which to be honest, it's true. It wasn't. It definitely was not one of her shining moments.
I
And
still
I
thought it
think
was funny as hell though.
there's a difference. Hers was actually funny.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, yeah. So James Gunn was one of the people that was like reveling in it, and then just a few weeks back, Ben Shapiro talked with Mark Duplass. I don't really. I've seen him in a few things, but I can't like pin it down like where exactly. But I guess like
Yeah,
they had like a meeting or an exchange, and then Mark Duplass puts out a tweet saying, "Hey, Ben Shapiro's a really is a really thoughtful and measured person. People on the left, you should if you want if you want someone decent to follow, follow Ben Shapiro." And then and then everyone on the left like just descended on Mark Duplass and pulled out all of these quotes, these tweets that Ben put out, and took them completely out of context, and it's like, oh, how dare you, um, how dare you humanize this Jewish Nazi.
yeah.
Yeah, if that I mean,
This Orthodox
that's not what
Jewish
they were
Nazi.
literally saying, but that's kind of the sentiment. It's like, oh, how dare you, yeah, again, humanize this Jewish Nazi. He's nothing. He's about hate speech, and he's about taking, away, rights for, gays and transgenders and blah blah blah. And they pretty much hammered Mark Duplass into denouncing Ben Shapiro on Twitter, and he actually did, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to promote I didn't mean to promote hate or whatever," which basically throwing Ben under the bus.
Yeah, it's there was that going on, and what was the I didn't what was the exact tweet that because I know it was like one for that he had put out a while ago on Twitter, and it was like something to the I forgot what the his specific tweet was. Do you remember?
Well, I mean, I don't know about recently, but what got
The
him
one
into
that he got in trouble for.
well, again, I don't. There were a bunch because Mike Cernovich went deep dive onto James Gunn's Twitter feed and pulled out like a lot within like the last like 10 years or so.
Oh, so it
It was
wasn't
like it
just
was like yeah,
one.
it was like a wall of tweets. Talking about like, oh, I just saw Expendables, and like, man, like it makes me wanna fuck this pussy boy sitting next to me.
What?
Yeah, and then like another one was like, oh, I'm doing this photo shoot with, and I think like he names a bunch of kids and it's like, oh, I'm trying to keep half chub so I look good in the photo.
Ew.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's the crazy thing, because there's been a lot of celebrities that they joke about pedophilia. You had like Sarah Silverman. One of her like more famous ones that she put out was is it something to the effect, is it like molestation or something if the kid comes on to me, or
Yeah.
things of those nature. It's like, and well, it's, I don't know, I don't find it very funny, just because that's one of those like topics where it's like, it's kind of, what, but that's one thing where I'm like, all right, let's that's not, it's just not funny. But then it's they're under the guise of, oh, we're just joking around. It's like essentially they're saying, it's like, well, would it be funny if like this kid touched my dick right now? Like, it's like where it's just really like uncomfortable, like kind of really bad taste, bad taste of a joke.
Yeah, I
And
mean, here's the thing. I'm completely enjoying this. I'm gonna be honest. I'm completely enjoying this. Everything that's happening to James Gunn right now, I am completely 100% enjoying it. Especially because the irony of him, like, castigating Roseanne, for her like her abhorrent comments, and then all of a sudden, it's like, and that's the precedent. That's the precedent that they set. That they set. It's like, oh, if you had said anything, if you at any time had said anything that was um, mildly offensive, or or even, or God, what's the word I'm looking for? Or somewhat, ambiguous, then you have to be fired.
yeah,
Because that's the standard. That is now the standard that they have set, and it's stupid because they didn't think that it could have, that standard could be then applied to them.
true. The well, you're very Schadenfreude right now.
Yes, exactly. I love Schadenfreude. It's the
I see
best.
it more,
It's the best.
I see it more as, it's where it's kind of like they're now reaping the consequences of their own actions, where it's thinking like, well, we're always in the right. Our ideas are right. What we say is right all the time. And then they say something that is 1,000 times more offensive, and now someone is finally calling them to account for those things. Like, and all right, if you're saying that like this person can't say this and they should be like their life destroyed, well, the same has to apply to you now.
Yeah.
Which, to me, like, in obviously in this case, like, with the pedophilia stuff, like, hey, you know what, absolutely. But even if it's something that's like, where now it's we're no longer just like, oh, you know what, yeah, it's a little controversial, maybe it's not so nice, or could offend somebody, but it's funny, and like within context it's actually kind of funny.
Well,
Then it's like, but the yeah, it's, or like, oh, he said, this person said something that it hurts my feelings, even though it's like it's just a fact of life or something. And, well, they should be fired because it's all these things. and they end
Well,
up
I mean, because
getting.
here's the thing, because I mean, Owen Benjamin pointed this out, and he found the most out of like all the tweets, he found the most joke like tweet, and it went like oh, the best part of being raped is that is after being raped, it's like, oh wow, that was great, like not being raped. It was like, after he's like, after being finished, after finished being raped, it's like that feeling where it's like, oh wow, that feels really great not to be raped. And that, and that's, and
Yeah.
and he was saying like, that's, that, and that was like the most joke like tweet, that,
Right.
because it wasn't mentioning anyone specific or a specific group. It was just talking about more about the experience.
Right.
And then like you have like this pattern where it's all about like pedophilia and like kid fucking or whatever. And like he even has like one where he talks about like masturbating to Justin Bieber. And at that time, at that time when he made that tweet, he was like a 40-year-old man, and Bieber was 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's not funny, but it's interesting to note that everyone, all the people who, or at least all the celebrities that do like these pedophilia jokes are unmarried or don't have kids.
True.
I mean that's just pattern recognition. It's like, yeah, everyone, like all the, everyone that does like these pedophile jokes are either, yeah, not married or don't have children. Because yeah, I mean, Owen Benjamin had a really funny pedophile joke. Um, like he's like he goes into a Walgreens and asks the clerk, like, oh, where are your pedophiles? And like the clerk is like, what? What are you talking about? It's like, yeah, I just saw like, in your mailer that you have a sale for a pedophile, for like this, so you could file down your toes, pedophile,
See, that's funny.
right? Yeah, because
Because it's
it's an
wordplay.
expectation of subversion. And so, and the way he explained it, like the joke is that the audience knows something that I don't.
Yeah.
So that's a joke that works. Or that's a
I didn't.
pedophile joke that works.
Yeah. See, that I can laugh to because that's just clever wordplay.
Yeah, exactly. And we're all about clever wordplay on this podcast.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, it's very concerning where there's just such a I don't know if it's necessarily like a cabal, but like it's where it's not just like, oh, one guy at the top. It's like everyone seems to be. There's a lot of people that are connected to this really horrific act in some form or another.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the end, James Gunn and like these people are just joking. But even this, like you had like Peter Fonda that came out with that tweet about, oh man, it wouldn't be really like I wish Barry Trump would get like fucked by these pedophiles in these in the jails at the borders. Like, so okay, so you're saying that like these, so you obviously see that there's a huge problem of people, some of these guys that are coming across the border that are fucking kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you want the president's son to be
a
held
victim
down,
of
attacked by people. It just, I like some of Peter Fonda's movies, but man, his politics and some of the things that come out of his mouth are just, it's pure garbage.
Yeah. But again, it goes back to like Like people on the left, they never think that the standard could ever be applied to them. And it's like I've come up with this saying. It's like don't think that the knife you sharpen for your enemy can't find its way into you.
Right.
And so like the left set the standard. Like, oh, if you said anything objectionable or offensive in the past, then it could be totally used against you in the present to destroy you. Well, you know what? We're fine. If them's the rules, then that's how we're gonna play.
Yeah, because I found it kind of interesting. There was a along that topic, and I don't know this particular person's political leanings or anything like, nor do I really care.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a pitcher on the Milwaukee Brewers that I don't know who it was that dug it up or and there was literally zero context given as to why he made this tweet.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a I think he's a fairly young guy. He's probably like 20, somewhere in his mid-20s at most. And they dug up a tweet from like when he was like 16 or 17, and they never showed the actual tweet. So that's why I'm kind of like, it seems a little. I'm just saying it seems a little not fabricated, but it's probably like it seems a little sketchy when you say, okay, you can't even like quote the actual tweet of what he said. And it was all the it was racist, it was homophobic, all the typical lines that are thrown out. And it's like, and for me, it's like, okay, and it came out during the All-Star game is when this all came to light, and it's like, okay. And he came out and it's like, hey, something that I said when I was, 17 years old. I'm not 17 anymore. I'm not a dummy. I don't, think or say things like that anymore or whatever. So it's like, but now he has to, there's potential. I think the team fined him. I don't know if the league fined him, and then he has to go through all this sensitivity training, and I think they may have suspended him for a game or two. I don't remember if they did or not.
So basically, a big waste of time. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. And for me, like, if he did say like those things, it's like, okay, hey, if it's like a really hateful thing that he said or whatever, okay, fine. It's maybe he does deserve all those things. But something I think that like the fact that like they wouldn't even really like show what he said, or there's no, like I said, zero context is given.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of a problem. And it's like, there's no show like, oh, it was, is it a pattern? Does he always say like these type of things? Is it or was it just, kind of like a one-off, that was maybe, a ill-timed, joke that's not funny kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny because it was dug up from like way in his past. And then a few weeks later, this thing with James Gunn, like they're digging into his past. I don't know if it's kind of there's someone that's, I mean, it's on the internet, so it's never, you can delete tweets, but they're never really gone.
Yeah, someone's always going to archive and save it or whatever.
Right. And so I don't know if like people are digging up tweets and just trying to. Both the the mob is just going after whether you're on the right or the left, and just trying to destroy the fabric of society. Well, this person's successful, so fuck him, and I'm gonna. Or I think in the case of something like James Gunn, or it's. From what you're saying is like it's not something that's it seems like a series of pretty questionable you know, tweets, and it's not just like, oh, he was saying it to a friend, and then somebody tweeted something out about him. It's like you're shouting this, not at 10 people. You're saying it to millions of people who follow you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're a fairly
Right, and
prominent
you're shouting,
director.
you're not whispering to someone's ear when you put it on Twitter. You're shouting it at like potentially millions of people. I mean, depending on who you are, millions of people who you have some kind of influence over.
Right. And
And so,
so,
but I guess two things. Because like the whole hater thing. Like I understand, like if it was like a dumb kid thing to say. I'm a little bit more understanding on that front. But like with James Gunn, like he was writing like those pedo tweets when he was a grown ass man. He was like 40 something. Like the whole like the Bieber thing. That was like when he was like 40. Yeah, I mean like you're pretty. Yeah, you're not wet. At that stage, you're not wet cement. You're hardened. You're cured. You're solid. That's who you are.
yeah.
And then also on the thing about context, yeah, because it's happening to everybody. It's happening to Ben Shapiro. I mean, it's kind of happening to James Gunn, but more because there was like a few tweets that reference like a link, but the link is no longer available or doesn't work or whatever. So in that way, he's being taken out of context. But I mean, but again, we have something in the news. The John Schrader, the founder of Papa John's Pizza.
Oh yeah.
He was recently taken out of context. Because he was in like some sort of meeting for like quality control or whatever, and then he had referenced that Colonel Sanders had called black people niggers, and like he get in the slightest bit of trouble. But then
Right.
but then he was then taken out of context, and the story was like, oh, John Schrader calls black people niggers, when that wasn't even the case.
Right.
And then and then he had to step, he had the initial controversy with the whole NFL kneeling thing, and he stepped down as CEO of the company, but I think he was still like chairman of the board. But then like after that happened, he stepped down, which I don't think he should have. He should have been like, hey, that I was taken out of context. That's not who I am as a person, and you guys know this already. So let's get back to making pizzas. And that's all that's all I have to say.
It was one of those things where it's like, okay, first of all, he didn't say that like, oh, these are my views.
Right.
He was speaking out against it's like it sucks because, or he was saying it's like, man, people that used to get away with some really crazy stuff, and it's like, not that he was saying that it's like all I did was just say like he didn't agree with the kneeling stuff, where it's like Colonel Sanders gets away with calling black people whatever horrible slander in the book, and nothing happened to him. He didn't lose his company, and that's kind of that's what he was kind of, I assume, is what he was getting at, and now he like pretty much has everything taken away from him, which is crazy.
Yeah. But again,
because he quoted Colonel Sanders.
Again, an alleged quote of Colonel Sanders. Just to be fair, but yes, yeah. But again, that's the world we live in now. And it's terrible. I mean, I'm not saying like we're in a better place. I think I think a world where we can speak our minds and not be deemed, Nazis or white supremacists or horrible people. That'd be more ideal, than anything else. Just in my humble opinion.
You're a
You know.
white supremacist, Andy.
Yes, I'm an Asian white supremacist. Because that makes all the sense in the world.
Absolutely.
Yes, right. Because I'm self-hating. That's what it is. Because I'm self-hating.
Pretty much.
Yeah.